Sarah stared in disbelief as the city trucks rolled up, pumping thousands of gallons of water back into her drained pool. After the HOA forced her to empty it, claiming it was an eyesore, she never expected this. But with raging wildfires sweeping through the neighborhood, the fire department was using her pool as an emergency water source. Trapped between the stubborn HOA and a natural disaster, Sarah realized her backyard had become a battleground, and she had to fight for what was rightfully hers. Sarah slammed the front door and stormed into the kitchen, her heart racing. Just an hour ago, the HOA management company had sent 2 burly men to her house, ordering her to drain the pool in her backyard. "It's an eyesore and a liability," the HOA president had said smugly. "We've received multiple complaints from neighbors. You have 24 hours to get it done." Sarah clutched the warning letter, her hands shaking with anger. "This is ridiculous. I just had the pool resurfaced last year. It's not causing any problems." The president sneered. "Well, the board has spoken. You'll be fined $500 a day if it's not drained by tomorrow." Fuming, Sarah had spent the entire afternoon watching her beautiful, newly remodeled pool slowly empty. As the last few inches of water swirled down the drain, she felt like a piece of her home had been ripped away. Now, staring out the kitchen window, she saw city fire trucks pulling up to the empty concrete basin. Firefighters began unfurling hoses, pumping water back into the pool. "What the hell is going on?" Sarah muttered, rushing outside. A burly firefighter noticed her approach. "Ma'am, we've got a major wildfire spreading fast in the next neighborhood over. Your pool is the closest reliable water source, so we're using it to fight the blaze." Sarah's jaw dropped. "But the HOA just made me drain it. How can you just fill it back up?" The firefighter shrugged. "Orders from the city. This is an emergency, ma'am. Public safety takes priority." Sarah clenched her fists, her mind racing. The HOA had forced her hand, and now the city was undoing all her hard work. She wasn't going to let them get away with this. Storming back inside, she grabbed her phone and started furiously dialing. "I'm calling my lawyer. There's no way I'm letting them get away with this." As the water level steadily rose in her backyard, Sarah paced the kitchen, determined to fight for what was rightfully hers. The HOA and the city had just made this a very personal battle. Sarah's lawyer, a sharp-tongued woman named Tanya, listened intently as Sarah explained the situation. "So the HOA forced you to drain your pool, and now the city is using it as a fire hydrant." Tanya shook her head in disbelief. "That's a clear abuse of power." "I know." Sarah paced the living room, running a hand through her hair. The HOA president was such a jerk about it too. He said it was an eyesore and a liability. Can you believe that? Tanya jotted down some notes. "Okay, here's what we'll do. First, I'll file an emergency injunction to stop the city from using your pool. Then, we'll take the HOA to court for wrongful coercion and property damage." Sarah's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank God. I was worried I'd have to just sit back and watch them ruin my backyard. Just then, the doorbell rang. Sarah opened it to find the HOA president, Mr. Wilkins, standing on her porch with 2 uniformed security guards. "Mrs. Mercer, we've received reports that you're interfering with the city's emergency response efforts," Wilkins said sternly. "You need to stop this immediately or face serious consequences." Sarah stared at him, stunned. "Interfering? Your goons forced me to drain my pool in the first place. Now the city is using it, and you have a problem with that." Wilkins held up a hand. "The HOA board made a lawful decision regarding the appearance and safety of our community. Your personal pool is not more important than public welfare." Tanya stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "I'm Sarah's attorney, and I can assure you that your board's decision was neither lawful nor justified. If you attempt to interfere with the city's use of her pool, you'll be facing a massive lawsuit." The HOA president's face reddened. "We'll see about that," He turned to the guards. Escort Mrs. Mercer off her property until this situation is resolved. As the burly security guards grabbed her arms, Sarah's eyes went wide. You can't be serious. This is my house. Tanya immediately stepped between them. Touch her and I'll have you arrested for assault. Mr. Wilkins, you're making a grave mistake. I suggest you leave before this gets uglier. Wilkins glared at them, then gestured to the guards. Let's go. We'll be in touch, Mrs. Mercer. As the HOA contingent retreated, Sarah turned to Tanya, her heart pounding. What the hell just happened? They can't do this, can they? Tanya's expression was grim. Unfortunately, the HOA does have some authority over property use, even on privately owned homes. But we're going to fight this tooth and nail. This is far from over. Sarah nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. She wasn't going to back down. Not when her own home was on the line. Over the next 24 hours, the battle between Sarah, the HOA, and the city fire department only intensified. Tanya had filed the emergency injunction, but the court wouldn't hear the case until the following week. In the meantime, the firefighters continued to use Sarah's pool as a crucial water source, much to the HOA's displeasure. Sarah watched helplessly from her kitchen window as the fire trucks came and went, pumping out thousands of gallons at a time. Each time, she felt a piece of her slowly being taken away. This was her home, her pride, and joy, and the HOA was determined to strip her of it. When the doorbell rang again, she braced herself, fully expecting to see Wilkins and his goons. Instead, a young woman in a fire department uniform stood on her porch. Mrs. Mercer, I'm Captain Olivia Diaz. I wanted to come by and explain the situation. Sarah eyed her warily. Explain? The situation is pretty clear. The city is using my pool against my will. Olivia nodded. I understand your frustration. Believe me, we don't want to be in the middle of this dispute. But the wildfires are raging out of control, and your pool is the closest reliable water source we have. So what? I'm just supposed to let you drain it dry? Sarah asked angrily. The HOA already forced me to spend thousands fixing it up. I know, and I'm sorry about that, Olivia said sincerely. But public safety has to come first in an emergency like this. We're doing everything we can to minimize the impact. Sarah let out a bitter laugh. Public safety. How is destroying my property protecting anyone? Olivia hesitated. Look, I know this is your home, and you have every right to be upset. But if we can't use your pool, the fire could spread and put hundreds of lives at risk. Sarah felt her resolve wavering. As much as she hated to admit it, the captain had a point. She couldn't stand by and watch her neighborhood burn down, even if it meant sacrificing her own backyard oasis. All right, fine, she said grudgingly. But I want it documented that I'm cooperating under protest, and you'd better make sure my pool is in perfect condition when this is over. Olivia smiled with relief. Absolutely. I'll make sure the department covers any necessary repairs. Thank you for understanding, Mrs. Mercer. You're helping a lot of people today. As the captain hurried back to the fire trucks, Sarah closed the door, her shoulders slumped. She knew she was doing the right thing, but it still stung. The HOA had put her in an impossible situation, and now she was forced to let the city destroy her beloved pool. Grabbing her phone, she quickly dialed Tanya's number. Hey, it's me. We need to step up our game. This just got a whole lot more personal. Over the next few days, the situation only grew more intense. The firefighters continued to use Sarah's pool as a crucial water source, while the HOA president, Mr. Wilkins, grew increasingly belligerent. This is outrageous, Wilkins shouted during a heated phone call with Tanya. Our residents should not have to suffer because of one homeowner's selfish interests. Tanya's voice was calm and measured, but Sarah could hear the underlying edge. Mr. Wilkins, your board's decision to force Mrs. Mercer to drain her pool was unlawful and caused a clear public safety issue. You're the one who created this mess. Mess? Wilkins scoffed. This is a matter of community standards and property values. That pool is an eyesore, and it's putting everyone at risk. At risk? Tanya's tone sharpened. The only risk here is your board's reckless actions. If you try to interfere with the fire department's use of the pool, you'll be liable for any damage or loss of life that results. Wilkins sputtered. You can't threaten me, counselor. I'll have my lawyers. I'd strongly advise against that, Mr. Wilkins, Tanya interrupted. Unless you want to end up in an even bigger legal battle. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to prepare for our court hearing. As Tanya ended the call, Sarah let out a long sigh. That guy is relentless. How are we going to win this? Tanya offered a reassuring smile. Don't worry, Sarah. The law is on our side here. The HOA overstepped its bounds, and the city's use of your pool is a clear public necessity. We just need to convince the judge. Sarah nodded, but she couldn't shake the knot of anxiety in her stomach. The HOA seemed determined to make her life a living hell, and she was terrified that no matter what, she was going to lose her beloved pool. That evening, as she stared out the kitchen window at the steady stream of fire trucks, her phone suddenly rang. It was Captain Diaz. Mrs. Mercer, I'm so sorry, but we got a major problem. The wildfires have jumped the highway, and we're losing control. We need to pump even more water from your pool. Sarah's heart sank. But what about the court hearing? We're supposed to get an injunction to stop this. Olivia's voice was laced with urgency. I know. But if we don't act fast, the entire neighborhood could be consumed. Please, we need your pool now more than ever. Gripping the phone tightly, Sarah made a split-second decision. Okay, do what you have to do. Just, please make sure it's in perfect condition when this is over. You have my word, Olivia replied gratefully. Thank you, Mrs. Mercer. You're saving lives today. As Sarah hung up the phone, she felt a sense of dread washing over her. The court hearing was only 2 days away, and now the city was draining her pool even faster. She was running out of time to save her backyard oasis. The morning of the court hearing dawned bright and clear, but Sarah couldn't shake the sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach. Ever since the fire department had ramped up their use of her pool, she'd watched helplessly as the water level steadily drained down. Now, just hours before the critical court showdown, the once pristine pool was little more than a muddy, barren basin. As Tanya pulled into the driveway, Sarah hurried out to meet her, panic etched on her face. Tanya, it's a disaster. The firefighters have practically emptied my pool. How am I supposed to convince the judge to shut this down when there's nothing left? Tanya's expression was grim as she surveyed the damage. This is exactly what Wilkins and the HOA wanted. They've put you in an impossible position. Sarah ran a hand through her hair, her eyes darting around nervously. There has to be something we can do. Maybe we can ask for a delay or... No, we can't delay this, Tanya interrupted firmly. The judge is already irritated that the city hasn't complied with the temporary restraining order. We need to go in there and make our case, no matter what the pool looks like. Sarah chewed on her lip, her mind racing. But what if the judge sides with the HOA? I'll have nothing left to fight with. Tanya placed a reassuring hand on her arm. We're going to win this, Sarah. I've got a plan, but you need to trust me, okay? Reluctantly, Sarah nodded. Tanya had never steered her wrong before, and if anyone could pull off a miracle, it was this tenacious lawyer. As they walked into the courthouse, Sarah felt her heart pounding in her chest. The HOA president, Mr. Wilkins, sat smugly in the front row, flanked by his 2 security guards. Across the aisle, the fire department captain, Olivia, offered Sarah a sympathetic glance. When the judge finally took the bench, Tanya rose and launched into her opening arguments. She skillfully laid out the timeline of events, highlighting the HOA's overreach and the city's flagrant disregard for the temporary restraining order. Your Honor, the HOA's actions have not only damaged my client's property, but have also put the entire community at risk. The city's use of her pool was a clear public necessity, but it should not have come at the cost of Mrs. Mercer's personal rights. The judge listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. As Tanya stepped down, Wilkins stood up, his face flushed with indignation. Your Honor, this is an outrageous abuse of the judicial system. Mrs. Mercer's pool is an eyesore and a liability, plain and simple. The HOA was well within its rights to demand its removal. Tanya quickly interjected. If I may, Your Honor, I'd like to present some new evidence that challenges the HOA's claims. The judge raised a hand. Proceed, Counselor. With a triumphant smile, Tanya gestured to the back of the courtroom. I'd like to call Captain Olivia Diaz of the City Fire Department to the stand. As Olivia took the stand, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. Tanya had a plan, and she was about to put it into motion. Captain Olivia Diaz took the stand, her uniform crisp and her expression composed. Captain Diaz, Tanya began, can you please explain to the court the role Mrs. Mercer's pool has played in the recent wildfires? Olivia nodded. Absolutely. During the height of the fires, Mrs. Mercer's pool was the closest reliable water source we had access to. Without it, we would not have been able to contain the blaze and protect the surrounding homes and businesses. Wilkins shot up from his seat, his face flushed with anger. Your Honor, this is completely irrelevant. The HOA's decision had nothing to do with public safety. The judge raised a hand, silencing him. Counselor, please continue. Tanya turned back to Olivia. And can you confirm that the city has been using Mrs. Mercer's pool despite a temporary restraining order? Olivia hesitated. Yes, that's correct. We were aware of the order, but given the dire circumstances, we had no choice but to continue using the pool as a water source. Wilkins jumped up again. See, the city has openly defied the court's orders. Tanya held up a hand. Your Honor, if I may, Captain Diaz, did the city make any efforts to mitigate the damage or destruction to Mrs. Mercer's property? Absolutely, Olivia replied. We've been carefully monitoring the water levels and have committed to fully restoring the pool once the emergency has passed. Tanya nodded. And can you describe the current state of the pool? Olivia paused, her brow furrowing. Unfortunately, due to the high demand for water, the pool is now nearly empty. But I can assure the court that we will cover all costs associated with repairing and refilling it. Wilkins jumped up again, his face contorted with fury. Your Honor, this is outrageous. The city has completely destroyed Mrs. Mercer's property, and now they expect us to just foot the bill. The judge held up a hand, silencing him. Mr. Wilkins, please sit down. I've heard enough. Turning to Tanya, he fixed her with a stern gaze. Counselor, your arguments are compelling, but I'm still unclear on the HOA's specific role in all of this. Can you explain why I should rule in your client's favor? Tanya took a deep breath, her expression unwavering. Your Honor, the HOA's decision to force Mrs. Mercer to drain her pool was not only unlawful, but it also directly contributed to the public safety crisis we now face. By removing a critical water source, they jeopardized the entire community. The judge nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing. I see. And what do you propose as a remedy? Tanya straightened her shoulders. I'm requesting that the court order the HOA to cover the full cost of restoring Mrs. Mercer's pool, as well as any additional damages. Their reckless actions have caused significant harm, and they must be held accountable. As Wilkins sputtered in outrage, Sarah felt a surge of hope. Tanya had laid out a strong case, and the judge seemed to be listening. Maybe, just maybe, they could win this. The courtroom descended into a tense silence as the judge considered Tanya's proposal. Sarah watched with bated breath, her heart pounding in her chest. After what felt like an eternity, the judge cleared his throat and leaned forward, his gaze sweeping across the room. This is a complex case with far-reaching implications. On one hand, the HOA board acted within its authority to address what it deemed a community concern. However, the resulting public safety crisis and the city's direct defiance of a court order are deeply troubling. Wilkins shot Tanya a triumphant glare, but Tanya remained unfazed, her eyes fixed on the judge. That being said, the judge continued, I find the HOA's actions to be a clear abuse of power, particularly given the mitigating circumstances and the city's efforts to minimize damage to Mrs. Mercer's property. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the judge's words sank in. Could they actually be winning? Therefore, the judge declared, I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff. The HOA is ordered to cover the full cost of restoring Mrs. Mercer's pool to its original condition, as well as any additional damages incurred. Additionally, the city is hereby enjoined from using the pool as a water source, effective immediately. Wilkins sprang to his feet, his face contorted with rage. This is an outrage. You can't. Mr. Wilkins, I would advise you to sit down and accept the court's decision. The judge interrupted sternly. Any further interference will result in contempt charges. Tanya turned to Sarah, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. I told you we'd win this. Sarah felt a rush of relief and gratitude, tears welling in her eyes. Tanya, I don't know how to thank you. You saved my home. Tanya squeezed her hand. It's what I do. And trust me, this is far from over. We're going to make sure the HOA and the city pay for every penny of this mess. As the courtroom erupted in a flurry of activity, Sarah felt a sense of renewed hope. She had won this battle, but the war with the HOA was far from over. Whatever came next, she was determined to protect her home and her beloved pool, no matter the cost. In the weeks that followed the court ruling, Sarah worked tirelessly alongside Tanya to hold the HOA and the city accountable. Wilkins and his board fought the decision tooth and nail, but the judge's orders were clear. They were responsible for fully restoring Sarah's pool. The process was arduous, with constant battles over the scope of the repairs and the associated costs. But Sarah refused to back down, determined to reclaim her beloved backyard oasis. Finally, after months of painstaking work, the pool was returned to its former glory, the shimmering blue water a sight for sore eyes. As the final touches were put in place, Sarah stood back and admired the transformation, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. It's even better than before, Tanya remarked, coming to stand beside her. I'd say you won this one in the end. Sarah nodded, a satisfied smile on her lips. Thanks to you. I couldn't have done it without your tenacity and legal expertise. Tanya waved a hand dismissively. Hey, that's what I'm here for. Although, I have to admit, this one was personal for me too. Sarah chuckled. I could tell. The way you put Wilkins in his place in that courtroom was nothing short of legendary. Well, the man had it coming, Tanya said, her eyes gleaming. No one messes with my clients and gets away with it. As they stood there, admiring the pool, a sense of peace and tranquility settled over the backyard. The battle with the HOA had been brutal, but Sarah had emerged victorious. She had fought for her home and her rights, and in the end, justice had prevailed. You know, Sarah said, turning to Tanya, I think I'm going to throw a pool party to celebrate. The whole neighborhood's invited, including the HOA president. Tanya grinned. Now that's what I call poetic justice. Count me in. With a newfound determination, Sarah headed back into the house, already planning the festivities. This was her home, her domain, and no petty HOA bureaucrats were going to take that away from her ever again.